there's a real honesty about depression, because it's saying both to yourself and to the world, my life sucks.
Right.
I suck. Things are not going well. If I try to do some sort of therapy with you that's just about, positive thinking, about talking positively, you have this resistance to change because, I'm not acknowledging the fact that deep down, the truth is,
this is the personal philosophy.
it sucks. Everything
Right.
sucks. My life
Because
sucks.
when people hear the words mental health, they tend to picture something obvious, like somebody who can't get out of bed or someone who's visibly overwhelmed. But most mental health struggles don't look like that. Most of the time, they just look like you waking up in the morning already tired. Not because you didn't sleep, but because your brain just never clocked out for the night. It's been running background noise all night long, thinking and replaying, worrying. So even rest doesn't feel like rest. And now you're expected to just get up and go be productive as if nothing's wrong. And you do. That's the wild part about it. You still get up. You brush your teeth, maybe scroll on your phone for a minute too long. You drag yourself into your life, into your responsibilities, and then you move throughout the day. And from the outside, nobody nobody would know that anything is off because you're answering the emails and responding to the messages. You might even, I don't know, crack a joke or two, but internally, it feels like you're pushing through mud. Everything takes more effort than it should, and you can feel it, even if nobody else can. A lot of this comes down to what I like to call invisible weight. It's like, it's the kind of mental load that doesn't make any noise, but it still drains you. It's the overthinking a simple interaction hours after it's already happened. You leave the conversation and suddenly your brain's like, whoa, why did you say that? Or you should have said this instead of that. And now you're like replaying it in your mind like it's game film, trying to analyze every word or tone, facial expression. It's exhausting. And the worst part is that you know it's unnecessary, but your brain doesn't care. Then there's this whole high functioning piece. This is where people get completely twisted. Just just because someone is functioning doesn't necessarily mean that they're okay. In fact, some of the people who are struggling, the ones who struggle the most are the ones who look like they have everything together.
This is what depression can look like. This was 12 hours before she took her life. This is smiling depression. It's the worst kind. She's masking her pain. In some cases, a suicidal person can appear calmer or happier once they've made a decision to end their life. This change comes from a feeling of relief. It's not because they're feeling better, but because they believe that their suffering will end soon. This is a red flag, especially if it follows a period of deep depression. Check on your friends,
Think
guys.
about it. These are the ones who are hitting all the deadlines. They're taking good care of their kids. They're showing up for other people and handling all of their responsibilities like pros. But what you don't see is what it costs them to do it. You don't see the crash afterwards late at night when it's time to go to bed. You don't see the mental shutdown or the emotional exhaustion or the way they sit in silence trying to recover from just getting through the day. And then we talk about the exhaustion for a second because this isn't the kind of tired that just taking a nap is going to fix. This is the kind where you wake up tired, you move throughout your day tired, you go to bed tired, but your brain still won't slow down enough to let you get any rest. So now you're stuck in this cycle where you're drained, but you can't recharge. And then eventually you start blaming yourself. You start thinking, why can't I just get it together? Or other people are doing more than me. What's wrong with me? And now you've added guilt on top of everything else that you're already carrying. This is also where avoidance starts to show up. And people love to label that as being procrastination. But a lot of the time, It's not about being lazy or irresponsible, it's about capacity. Your brain is already juggling so much stress and emotions and expectations that even the simplest things start to feel very overwhelming. So instead of doing the thing, you avoid it. You scroll, you distract yourself. You tell yourself, oh, I'll do it later, knowing full well that later is going to feel just as heavy. And it's not that you don't care, it's just that your system is so overloaded. Also have to understand that mental health struggles also don't always show up as sadness. Sometimes they show up as irritability. You find yourself just completely snapping over some of the littlest things or getting overwhelmed by noise, feeling like everything is just too much. And then, of course, comes the guilt afterwards. Now you're beating yourself up for how you reacted, which just adds another layer to what you're already dealing with. Other times, it looks like shutting down completely, not wanting to talk, not wanting to engage, uh, pulling back from people. And not because you don't care, but because you just genuinely don't have the energy to show up the way you normally
I'm gonna be honest
would.
with you. I have more bad days than good ones, and I have struggled with depression for most of my life. You may have seen this in another reel, but every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, and the first thing I think is, what's the point? It's just my default. I am a glass half empty person by nature for whatever reason, and it's taken me many years to try to work with that, to have a different perspective every day. As many of you also know, I just ended my engagement a few months ago and called off the wedding, and I had planned a bachelor party that is supposed to be taking place this weekend months ago. I was originally going to call off the whole weekend with my friends, but I thought about it and I just said, why don't we just make it a guys' weekend? So I texted everyone and they were all in. So tomorrow to Sunday, we're going to be in Austin, Texas, having a really fun weekend. And friendship, bonding, creating real deep relationships and connections with people is one thing that has dramatically helped my mental health. Some of these guys I've known for over 20 years, and it's the bonds that we create that will serve us well later in our life. But you have to make the effort. And when I get depressed, I don't want to talk to anyone. And I think that's how most people feel. But in my experience, anytime I've turned inwards, it's done nothing for me. So as I've gotten older, I've learned to reach out when I don't want to ask for help. What could have just been a canceled weekend, and I could have just been sad about the fact that it's a relationship ended and all this stuff, I decided to turn it into a positive. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, PTSD, or any type of trauma, I really encourage you to reach out to loved ones, reach out to friends, family, because it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not ask for help and lean on others. Because in this life, you can paddle a boat alone, but you're just not going to get that far.
And even through all of this, there's this unspoken pressure for you to just seem fine, to not make things uncomfortable for other people, to not be too much, quote unquote. So when people ask like, how you doing? You just say, "Oh yeah, I'm good," even when you know for a fact that you're not, because explaining how you actually feel feels like a whole task in and of itself. It's easier to just keep it moving than to try to put everything into words. What people are dealing with day to day mental health struggles actually need isn't very complicated, but it's often overlooked. They don't need constant advice or someone trying to just fix them. They need space that doesn't have judgment. They need people who listen without immediately jumping into solutions or jumping to conclusions. They need understanding that doesn't come with conditions. And honestly, they need permission to just not have it all together all the time without feeling like they're falling apart or failing at life. So, if any of this sounds familiar, let me make this very clear. There is nothing wrong with you because you're struggling with things that are genuinely hard. You are not lazy. You are not broken. you are not falling behind. What you're doing is navigating a hell of a lot more than people can see. And that matters. The goal isn't for you to pretend that these struggles don't exist or for you to power through them like they're not affecting you. The goal is to start recognizing what's actually happening, to give yourself a lot more grace in the process, and to find ways to support yourself that don't require you to run yourself into the ground just to prove that you're okay. Because being okay should not cost you this much.
Can't twist myself